success model from Nara Women's University, Japan, and my co-organizer is Kate Scott from Kingston University, UK. We will hand over to Dan, Deirdre in a few moments, but first we just wanted to say a few words about this group, what we do, and what we have planned.
Yes, so the Relevance Researchers Network was set up by Ryoko and me in 2020 as a way to stay in contact and discuss ideas during the pandemic. But it soon became clear that a network to connect people working with relevance theory had a life beyond lockdown. And we decided to keep it going and run regular online events to allow people all over the world to present and discuss their research and ideas. We've run regular seminars since then, and we held our first conference in October 2022. We currently have over 70 members from across 20 countries, and we recently affiliated with the Reading for Relevance postgraduate and early career reading group based at Brighton University.
And we're in the process of setting up some special interest group to focus research and projects around particular areas and themes, and we'll be announcing the details of those very soon. And organization is underway for our second conference as well, and this will be online in May next year, 2025. The deadline for the submission of abstract is the 16th of December, so you have just about a month to get those in, hint, hint. And you can find out more about our upcoming sessions by our website, that's www.relevanceresearchers.something.com, I think. And yeah, you will have that link soon. And if you are not already on our mailing list, do let us know and we'll be happy to add you.
And so without further ado, we are delighted to pass over to Dan Sperber and Deirdre Wilson, who are going to lead the discussion of their most recent paper, Rethinking Ostensive Communication in an Evolutionary, Comparative and Developmental Perspective. So over to you.
Okay, so I'm going to start. And first, we want to start by thanking Kate and Ryoko for organising this session, and even more for setting up the Relevance Researchers Network in general, which is proving to be a great forum for discussion. We'd also like to thank all of you who are here participating today, and particularly those of you who submitted questions. In fact, we've had quite a lot of questions. But we'd also like to leave some time for general discussion at the end. And so here's how we'd like to proceed. We've divided most of your questions, there are a few that we didn't manage to fit in, into groups. And we've put them on a handout, which Dan has already shared with you. So you should all have the handout on your screen. It starts with a brief summary of the 5 main points we think we've made in the paper. And at that stage, it would be useful I think just to restrict yourself to clarification questions and save the discussion for later. Then for each question on the handout, we've given the name of the person who asked it, and they're welcome to elaborate on their question, respond to our suggestions, and so on. Maybe at that stage, again, restrict yourselves, the rest of the participants, to clarification questions rather than getting into long discussions just because of the amount of questions we've got to get through. But I'd like particularly to mention Charles Forsville. I don't know whether he's here, but he sent us a huge number of questions, mainly discussing differences between his own approach to multimodal communication, which is really interesting, and our own work. We've included a couple of them on the handout, but because there were so many, we've replied privately to the rest of them, and he should have received those replies by now. Then finally, just to mention, the original paper we wrote was even longer than this one, and it contained much more material on Grice. Some of your questions are about the relation between our paper and Grice. And so what we decided just to save space in the paper was to cut out that section and write a longer companion piece on the relation between relevance theory and Grice, which will be more oriented towards people working in pragmatics. So then finally, since Dan has been thinking much more and for much longer about the main topics of this paper, I'm going to hand over to him. He's going to lead the discussion, and I'm just going to heckle from the background and occasionally ask clarification questions myself. So I'll hand over to Dan now.
just we submitted the paper to Psych Review 6 months ago, and we just got revise and resubmit nice message. And so this discussion will also help us revise the paper, indeed, to resubmit. Without further ado, let's follow the schedule as indicated by Deirdre. So first I'll go about just, you're all supposed to have read the paper. I won't summarize in any detail, but just highlight 5 main points which were already highlighted in the conclusion. So first point is ostension in general, as we describe it, is a mode of communication quite distinct from signaling. It is characterized by 3 main features. First feature, the communicator draws the addressee's attention to her own communicative behavior, thus eliciting an expectation of relevance in him. Second, the communicator provides the addressee with evidence of the information being communicated. Now, the notion that you can communicate by providing evidence seems to immediately hit an objection, namely that any piece of evidence is evidence for an indefinite variety of conclusions. So which of these conclusions are you trying to communicate by giving the evidence? And that's where we have a specific answer. The pieces of evidence providing ostension may warrant a wide open range of conclusions. So how can they be used to convey some specific piece of information? Here's our answer. In drawing inferences from the evidence ostensibly provided, the addressee is guided by an expectation of relevance which, when communication is successful, is precise enough to be uniquely satisfied by the specific informational content the communicator intended to convey. I think that this is, in a sense, the most original, important, and novel idea in all of relevance theory. It's that's first. I think it's novel. I don't think that idea had ever been suggested in any form. And it has consequences which trickle down through for all aspects of communication in a variety of. So the second main point I just want to remind us of is that we distinguish 2 forms of ostension: a basic non-mentalistic form and a mentalistic form which is fully developed in humans. In basic ostension, the communicator provides observational evidence from which the addressee can directly infer the information being communicated, and that's the black arrow on the figure that you have on your screen. In mentalistic ostension, the communicator provides observational evidence. I mean, in both cases, you communicate by providing observational, or if you prefer, perceptual evidence. The communicator provides observational evidence of her intention to communicate some specific content. Recognizing this intention provides the addressee with interpretational evidence of the content being conveyed. So you have in both cases you have direct evidence of some information, either of information that the speaker intends to communicate in basic ostension, or observational evidence of the intention of a communicator, and interpreting that intention provides you with indirect evidence of information communicated. Basic ostension, so point 3. Basic ostension, we suggested, is an adaptation that evolved among apes, if not before. I mean, we're not committing to the idea that didn't evolve in other primates or maybe in other species altogether. Apes are capable of acting intentionally and recognizing intentional behavior in others. However, in their case, the potential benefit of communicating intentionally are severely limited by problems of expressive power. Basically, they're limited to the repertoire of signals and problems of reliability. It might seem that doing intentionally something that other species and humans and other apes to do quite often, that is, you communicate unintentionally by, for instance, emotions of expression that you cannot control. It limits in a way the power of communication, and if you can do it intentionally, it should be much more powerful and useful. Except that you lose in reliability, precisely because you can control it to your own benefit. It's a ground for the audience not to accept the communicated information because it may not serve their interest. So these are the two problems of expressive power and reliability. So ostension, we argue, may have evolved to address these problems, making intentional communication more advantageous. In particular, the range of information that can be ostensibly communicated is broader than the range that can be communicated by signaling. Again, you can use any kind of thing as evidence. For signaling, you're limited to the signals that you share with the audience. Ostension makes it possible to communicate effectively using vague or ambiguous signals. Ostension is a way to disambiguate, which there's some contextual disambiguation in animal communication of a pure signaling kind, but it's very rule-governed and very narrow. One of the things that ostension makes possible is to use quite ambiguous signals and nevertheless get the audience to converge on the intended interpretation. And you find that a lot in apes whose signals, gestural signals, it has been often pointed out, are vastly ambiguous, if not underdeterminate in other ways. And ostension helps to make intentional communication more reliable by engaging a social relationship between communicator and audience. Fourth point, mentalistic ostension emerge among humans, if not before. Again, we're not saying it's only in humans. As far as we know, it's only in humans, but there may be some of it in other apes or in other species, for all we know. And it emerged from a synergy between two capacities that had evolved independently of one another and with two different functions. The capacity to communicate ostensibly, with the function we suggest of making intentional communication more efficient and more effective. And again, this can be in the absence of mentalization altogether. And B, the capacity to mentalize, that is to attribute mental states to our and meta-represent their content. We use mentalize in that precise sense. And that capacity evolved with the function of better predicting the behavior of others, either in agonistic or in cooperative interactions. And you get the two merging together in mentalistic ostension. 5 point, the range of information that can be communicated using interpretational evidence is broader than the range that can be communicated using direct observational evidence of information to be communicated. It includes information for which the available observational evidence is too weak on its own, but can be reinforced by interpretational evidence. Information for which the communicator can provide no observational evidence, information about the past, about the future, about speculations and so on, but can offer interpretational evidence in various ways. So among the ways are more or less conventionalized pantomiming of iconic devices, repurposed natural or conventional signals, improvised behavior, but more important, point C, information for which language provides a unique source of interpretational evidence. So these were the main point in our view of this lengthy paper that you've read and about which you ask questions. So now we move to questions. First,